Good afternoon. Welcome to Tribune News on Q, your go-to afternoon news source only here at Daily Tribune. We're live on Daily Tribune's Facebook page, Daily Tribune PH on YouTube, and at Daily Tribune Official on TikTok. For today's headlines. The Department of Foreign Affairs confirmed that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will hold a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on 17 to 18 June. Senator Amy Marcos on Tuesday called on Filipinos to be more vigilant amid ongoing tensions within the Senate leadership and developments surrounding the flood control probe. The Department of Foreign Affairs has declined to comment further on the sanctions imposed by the Chinese government against Defense Secretary Gilbert Chodoro Jr. and his family. A retired Supreme Court Associate Justice called on the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to consider filing a new arbitration case against China over its continued activities in the West Philippine Sea. National Bureau of Investigation Director Melvin Matibag on Tuesday raised concerns over the legitimacy and legal basis of a Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing led by Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. Philippine agriculture is expected to gain relief from rising production and logistics costs after a breakthrough agreement between the United States and Iran paved the way for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Alex Yalo will enter the Berlin Tennis Open full of determination after dropping to number 35 in the latest Women's Tennis Association rankings. Ashley Rivera is overwhelmed with grief after announcing the death of her mother following the latter's battle with cancer. Today is the 16th day of June 2026, Tuesday, and I'm Chynna Basillaje, bringing you today's top stories. Let's get started. The Department of Foreign Affairs confirmed that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will hold a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin during his visit to Kazan, Russia on 17 to 18 June for the ASEAN-Russia Commemorative Summit. Speaking at a briefing in Malacanang, Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Dominic Xavier Imperial said discussions between the two leaders will primarily focus on energy and food security, two issues both countries consider crucial amid ongoing global uncertainties. He added the leaders are also expected to discuss regional and international developments, particularly the impact of the war in the Middle East on the global fuel supply and food prices. And Senator Amy Marcos on Tuesday called on Filipinos to be more vigilant amid ongoing tensions within the Senate leadership and developments surrounding the flood control probe. The statement came after a Blue Ribbon Committee hearing led by the Alan Peter Cayetano bloc did not push through. Marcos, who was reportedly barred from entering the Double Gem EDSA Garden Events Place, where the hearing was supposed to be held, urged the public to resist what she described as moves that suppress rights and freedoms and called for peaceful and orderly action. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs has declined to comment further on the sanctions imposed by the Chinese government against Defense Secretary Gilbert Chodoro Jr. and his family, even as some individuals and groups have condemned Beijing's move. Very briefly, I would reiterate what the Secretary has already said about that, so I'll put it there. DFA Assistant Secretary for ASEAN Affairs and spokesperson for ASEAN 2026, Dominic Xavier Imperial, told Daily Tribune in a palace press briefing on Monday. Last week, the DFA called the sanction an unfriendly act that further complicates our bilateral relations. And retired Supreme Court Associate Justice called on the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to consider filing a new arbitration case against China over its continued activities in the West Philippine Sea, saying the Philippines stand on strong legal ground following its landmark 2016 arbitral victory. Former Supreme Court Justice Francis Hardaleza, who was Solicitor General when the Philippines filed its first arbitration case before the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague in 2013, said in a radio interview that a new legal challenge would essentially serve as a follow-up to the country's previous win. He noted that the strength of any future case would stem from the 2016 arbitral ruling that invalidated China's expansive claims in the South China Sea. Meanwhile, National Bureau of Investigation Director Melvin Batibag on Tuesday raised concerns over the legitimacy and legal basis of a Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing led by Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. Matibag was referring to the 4th of June hearing on the flood control probe where 18 alleged former bodyguards of former lawmaker Zaldico were present. He said any legal question would depend on whether the proceedings were properly sanctioned by the Senate and would fall within authorized legislative function. Matibag in a radio interview clarified he was speaking as a lawyer and not issuing a formal finding that the proceedings were illegal. The Philippine agriculture is expected to gain relief from rising production and logistic costs after a breakthrough agreement between the United States and Iran paved the way for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, a key global shipping route that had driven up fuel and fertilizer prices during months of disruption. The Department of Agriculture said the development will help ease input costs for farmers and stabilize preparations for the upcoming rice planting season, as lower global oil prices are expected to translate into reduced expenses for transport, irrigation fuel, and fertilizers. With the route now expected to reopen, trade flows between the Philippines and the Middle East are also seen improving, supporting exports such as bananas, pineapples, canned tuna, sardines, coconut-based products, and other processed food items. And the Philippine stocks closed higher, with the benchmark PSEI rising 47.62 points or 0.76% to 6,320.50. The broader all-shares index also advanced 0.43% to 3,449.03, reflecting generally positive market sentiment. Sectoral performance was mixed. Gains were led by services, which climbed 3.02%, followed by mining and oil 0.95%, industrial 0.75%, and holding firms 0.66%. These advances helped offset weakness in financials, which fell 1.91%, and property, which declined 0.53%. The strong performance of services and mining and oil sectors provided the main boost to the market, while losses in financial and property limited the broader rally. Overall, investors maintained a positive stance, pushing major indices into positive territory. And in sports, Alex Iyala will enter the Berlin Tennis Open full of determination after dropping to number 35 in the latest Women's Tennis Association rankings released on Monday. Iyala, 20, slipped from number 33 ahead of her opening match against Donna Vekic of Croatia, who is coming off a title run at the Queen's Club Championship in London over the weekend. Meanwhile, Ashley Rivera is overwhelmed with grief after announcing the death of her mother following the latter's battle with cancer. The actress-comedian, also popularly known as Petra Mahalimuyak, expressed her longing for her mom through her Instagram stories on Monday, June 15. "No more pain, Ma. May your heart and soul find peace and comfort," the actress wrote, showing a photo of her mom from when she was healthier. "I miss you so much. I love you forever," she said. And the De La Salle brothers opened in Paco, Manila, the first La Salle school in the country. Katribu, did you know on June 16, 1911, 9 pioneer brothers representing the Institute of the Brothers of the Christian Schools, Fratres Scholarum Christianarum, or the De La Salle brothers, officially opened the doors to the first La Salle school in the Philippines. Starting with just 125 primary and secondary students, this modest foundation would eventually reshape the landscape of higher education and leadership in the country. And now viral with over 600,000 views, shows a man walking around the condominium premises with only a towel wrapped around his waist after rushing out of his unit when the earthquake struck while he was taking a shower. Let's watch this.
Yeah, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
lumabas ng building para mag-evacuate ng basang-basa.
Yep, that's me.
And that's all for now. Join us again at 4:30 p.m. still here on Daily Tribune's Facebook page, Daily Tribune PH on YouTube, and at Daily Tribune Official on TikTok. Once again, I'm Chynna Basillaje, and this has been Tribune News on Q.